Jay, why is there a police officer patrolling our road?
He's got a dog.
Up and down the road?
He's got a dog out there. He's training.
Oh, he's training. I didn't know if he was checking for speed.
Well, I saw the dog peeing, and then he had something in his hand, so I think he's...
Oh, so he's training the dog. Rebecca and I were both speculating whether he was checking for our speed. We were like, what's this?
Stands one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice.
Roll call. Rebecca. Sarah Locke.
Oh my gosh.
What?
We're doing roll call.
We're going that way first.
No, over there. I said my name.
Venus Landry.
Pam McLeod.
Tim Rogers.
Karen Curitono.
Eliza Turley.
Ann Pierce.
And I had a request to please speak loudly and into the microphones tonight because it's for video.
All righty. Tested. Oh, works.
Okay.
Not that I'm going to talk.
We are at our first public input. Do we have any public input? No? I see none. I'll close public input. Agenda review.
Make a motion to accept the agenda presented.
I'll second.
Any discussion or changes?
I believe there's one item, under finance, the audit engagement letter. It can be deleted.
It can be deleted. Okay. Anything else? Okay. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay.
Make a motion to approve the meeting minutes of June 7th, 2022.
Second.
Any discussion? Okay, all those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Okay. All right, reports. So I take it we don't have a finance report at all?
Yeah, Heidi's not feeling well.
Okay.
And she doesn't typically do an expenditure report at the end of July because we just started the year. We'll do a finance committee meeting and expenditure report and all the regular stuff. With regards to the audit, we don't have the audit engagement letter, but the audit is to take place the final week of August. The auditors plan to be here for 1 week and do all 3 SAUs.
Oh, wow.
We'll see if that's enough time, but that's their plan.
That's, yeah.
It's great. Yeah.
That's a big task, 3 districts. Okay.
They say they can do it.
Yeah,
hope they
they can
can.
do it, they can do it.
Buildings and grounds. It's like we have 3 items there.
So just with regards to the ESSER-funded air quality and roof replacement project, I want you to know that it's in progress, that H.L. Turner got the engineering for all 3 schools' ESSER construction projects, including this one. They came in under the amount we had budgeted in the grant activity with DOE when we got conceptual approval. What that means is the additional money we thought was going to go into engineering is now available for construction. So the construction budget here is almost $300,000 now, which is great because remember, we're doing the flat roof replacement along with the air quality improvement, so we need enough money for both. So that was a relief. They were here about 2 weeks ago. They're working on the engineering now. Our goal is to be out to bid in the fall so that we have contractors secured by January, I think is probably realistic for work to be done next summer.
Yeah.
But in order to get onto their schedules, we want to be out to bid like October, November at the latest.
Okay.
So that's in good shape. Summer projects, Andy has, he sent me some emails the last couple of days. He's ordered the tile and carpet for the chorus rehearsal room in the auditorium. He's working on scheduling and says it will be done. The auditorium can be done before school starts. The tile is, something happened with the company that manufactures the tile that was used in this school. They've gone out of business, so they just went out of business. So he got a quote based on using their tile, put in the order, and just within the last few days found out it won't be that tile. So they're working on sourcing a replacement and still getting the job done on time. He purchased the materials to do the repairs. If you haven't noticed, now you will. The sidewalks in front of the building, I think they've been sort of a source of frustration for quite a while. They kind of deteriorate in the seams between the big squares. He bought the materials out of last year's budget before that fiscal year closed and plans to do the work this August. And having some speakers installed in the auditorium? Gymnasium, that's what I meant. Which, same thing, they've been ordered, they're not here, but again, he says should be installed during August. I think
It's
that's
not just the sidewalks that are a problem. The whole resurfacing that they did on the cement is
peeling.
flaking and peeling and, yeah,
Yeah, so,
bad job.
Heidi supervises him, but we, with Jay, we were all there, asked for the whole thing to be redone, reconditioned, which he said we can do ourselves with the right materials. So we'll see what it looks like. If it's the same stuff and it peels again, maybe we need to go a different direction. What's the third thing? Sorry. Oh, the capital plan. I have copies of the capital plan. So Alton has a capital improvement plan committee, and they've asked us to, they actually asked me last August to go meet with them, and I claimed I was too new and didn't. Well, I didn't have much to say. So that evening, Sean Asdot will come to talk about the elementary school, and Carol will come as chair of that board in order to help describe to that town's CIP committee how the joint board functions. One of their questions last year was about the paving of the driveway up here that the joint board had encumbered out of surplus. So I want to walk them through how the shared governance works, to caution against having shared things start to find their way into either town's CIP, because I think that would represent a misunderstanding, right? I think that asserting this joint board's authority as a shared body between the two towns is important. So we're going to go spend an evening with the CIP committee.
Fun, huh?
This reflects what we ended up doing for fiscal '23. So if you go, the first column with some highlighting in it is what we did last year with some notes. In the second column, the third column is what we budgeted or are doing for fiscal '23. So the items highlighted in yellow made it into the operating budget. The items in blue were encumbered by the joint board from surplus, and the items in, I guess it looks pink on this sheet, those are ESSER grant funded. So the blue and pink are not budgeted funds. They're the money, that money's coming from other sources. So that when we have final numbers, we'll update these so that they're exact. As you can see, there's a lot of rounding here. A lot of numbers that end in zero, and nothing we buy ever ends in a zero. So when we have a chance, we'll put in the real numbers. The other important thing about looking at a capital plan is, here's a preview of what's in there for fiscal '24. So as we look at the next budget cycle, which right now may seem like it's not time yet, but it is right around the corner. We're going to be talking about the fiscal '24 budget. These are the requests. Just because they've been requested doesn't mean you'll even see them in a proposal. But these are the things that Jay and Heidi and I and Andy will talk about first, and then some of these might make it to a proposal to the Finance Committee, and then some of them are likely, some of them at least, will be in the proposed budget when that time comes.
Thank you. Principal's report. Jay?
I have several things. Oh, hello, by the way. Sorry. Got ahead of myself there. There are several things to discuss, but a lot of it also coincides with action items. So I don't know if you want me to talk about that stuff now or wait until we are ready to, or you are ready to vote on it.
We just can do actions?
Yeah, let's do it now, and then if we have anything,
I think is, yep, so, sorry, the packet before the handbook recommended changes to the 22-23 handbook. So I included the changes as well as the way the handbook currently reads so that you could see the changes as we've recommended.
So you had a question about whether we want anything COVID-related?
So I did underline, first off, I should say the italicized part is what has been modified in the handbook. And nothing is incredibly drastic, and I tried to outline it the best I could for you. And then the things that are underlined are the specific questions that I would
That you
certainly
want
like
action
your
on.
opinion on before our yearbook goes into PDF format.
Well, allowing students to arrive late and leave early, I think, has been a senior privilege, correct?
Prior to COVID, it was a senior privilege.
I think that's important to the seniors to be able to have that privilege.
yeah, I agree.
Okay.
So I'm just going to the top, on the academic intervention, I just had some questions about it. So this is a new section, right?
Yes, we have had academic intervention in the past, but we have not, we haven't described it so intricately inside the handbook. It's been used as a tool for teachers to use to intervene with kids without having to necessarily call home just because you had a lunch detention or academic intervention today because you didn't turn your homework in. So rather than it going into our student information system, it's been kept at a teacher level, which it will remain at a teacher level, but felt it was important to differentiate between what's going to be an academic intervention and a teacher detention moving forward. Over the past couple of years, they've become blurred. We're just going back to separating them out.
I was just curious, because it seems a little ambiguous to say there'll be assigned academic intervention when class or homework is not completed on time. I mean, is that purposely ambiguous? Because it really seems like it should be a repeated issue, right? Where there'd be intervention?
Yes and no. The reason I kept it ambiguous is because it might be a homework issue. It might be a classwork issue. That might be you didn't finish your test, you didn't complete your project, you didn't do your work. And so I played around wordsmithing it to try to encompass everything, and that's where I landed. Keeping it ambiguous enough where a teacher might say, hey, Jason, you missed one homework assignment. Next time, I'm going to give you an academic intervention. Whereas that teacher over there may say, hey, Karen, I'm giving you an academic intervention because you missed this homework assignment.
I kind of like that it's a little vague because I think it gives the teacher some flexibility in working with them to sort of not immediately issue a detention if that can be avoided and this could be a first stop.
Right. Our goal is to provide the intervention to get the work completed, whatever realm that works in.
Plus, it'll teach flexibility once you know your students of which one needs what.
Right.
So.
Right.
Yeah, and I guess I understand the distinction between doing a detention versus this. I think this is a great first step. It seems like it also opens it up that it wouldn't be consistent for students. You know what I mean? If you're talking about, oh, this teacher did that teacher did that, this is for that kid, this is for the other kid, it seems like it's not really clear to the students where that lands. You know, this doesn't imply that there's some kind of repeat issue. It just leaves it wide open that if you miss one assignment, if your teacher is being harsh that day, they could assign you an academic intervention.
I have teachers who miss one assignment and they're giving you an academic intervention during lunch. And then I have teachers who say, you missed 3 and I'm giving you that detention. It's relative to the course. It's relevant to the amount of work that is given. Some teachers will give homework every night, and the quantity of the work has a larger impact on grade.
For me, it prepares them for going on to college, because some of your college professors will allow you to make up, some won't. And it's the flexibility.
Right, and I don't think you want everything the same. I don't think you want every class to have such rigid standards that there's no flexibility and there's no, taking into account the teacher's personality, the student's personality. And I think that when there are different expectations for each student or for each class, that it does kind of prepare them for quote-unquote real life, where you're going to have different bosses.
Is it fair to ask that their academic intervention approach be in the syllabus, their general approach to it for the
It
class?
typically is.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's something that, but I
It's an
don't like
expectation.
to be that prescriptive to say both of you are going to have that same policy. I do want to give teachers flexibility. There is a difference between not submitting your one paper that's valued at 20% of your grade versus you didn't finish that worksheet last night, you didn't do the last two. I want teachers to have that flexibility.
Well, why couldn't you put in the policy then that it's the teacher's discretion? Instead of just making it more general, just say it's the teacher's discretion when they're assigned an academic intervention. Then it
It
would be
says students will be assigned an academic intervention when class or homework is not completed on time. So that infers that if you don't turn something in on time, you automatically have an academic
Yes.
intervention. So that's even different than what you're saying, that it's the
No.
teacher's discretion. So I'm just trying to, it just seemed really ambiguous, that's why I'm asking.
Yeah, I think
because
it's the wording.
I imagine parents
I'll
asking, I
change the
imagine
verbiage
students
however you-
asking.
Whatever you suggest, I'll change to.
Well, I guess I understand what you're saying. Are you saying the teacher has to give them an intervention?
Yes, but I'm not saying it the first time.
But that's not clear.
How about if we say students could be assigned instead of will be?
I think the will is, I get what you're saying, the will sounds like.
The will
for
sounds like it's a
first time,
definite,
automatic.
right.
We want to make it seem
And you don't want
at
to
the beginning of the year that we're taking this seriously, this is a big deal, so will is often used versus
Based on
should.
classroom.
I feel like we're overthinking it a little, to be honest. And I think that coming out with a heavy message is better. I get what Jay's saying about you want them to sort of,
But if the teachers aren't doing it, then it's going to become a thing where they're pitting teachers against teachers, like Mr. So-and-so didn't make me go.
but that's normal, that's life.
Right.
I mean, I like
That's-
the idea of being put in the syllabus, why? I mean, teachers should have it written in the
Right, it
syllabus.
should be
what their
teacher's discretion
expectations
is
are.
what I'm hearing.
And then the kids are aware right out of the gate.
How about
Right.
based on classroom policy?
Right, something like
Based on
that.
classroom policy, academic intervention may be assigned when class or homework is not completed on time to the teacher's discretion or to the teacher's expectations. I don't know, I'm reading this as a parent, reading this as a student, it seemed really ambiguous. That's why I brought it up. Because it was new.
I do believe it should be the teacher's discretion. I'm not disputing that, Ann, definitely. But I think that we need to make that clear in the student handbook, because otherwise it's going to be very difficult for everybody.
Yeah, I think the wording change captures.
So you would prefer at teacher's discretion, students could be assigned an academic intervention.
That sounds good.
All right.
So with the COVID question, Jay, are you asking if we're going to excuse them? I mean, you have a very strict attendance policy, correct? For sickness, if they don't go to the doctor and don't have a doctor's note?
We have flexibility on that, which the nurse and I have exercised for years, even prior to COVID. We
Okay.
understand not everyone goes to the doctor
Sure.
at the time to get sick or
Because that's
has
one of the
insurance.
biggest objections of parents. They have the flu, they miss a week, but they don't take them to the doctor.
Our position is if they're communicating in a timely manner with the school, we work with them.
Okay, good.
My specific question here, this is the first time COVID comes up and is mentioned inside the book. So I underlined that question there. What do you want COVID-related, COVID-wise in the book? Right now, there's a whole section that says if X happens, why then.
I mean, what's wrong with what is there under A? That's,
Yeah, I think it would work.
I think
like-
that's fine. Personally, it says have a conversation.
Okay.
Right. And the nurse is good about that. She'll
Yeah.
talk it out with them.
Okay.
I mean, at this point, I think people are pretty well versed in,
We have protocols we pull in place anytime there's an outbreak, so.
Right.
Now we have monkeypox to worry about.
Let's not even go there.
So in the school, arriving at school, we're good with that? We talked about allowing all students to arrive, so it wouldn't say all students, it would just be seniors?
It would just be seniors, yeah.
I think that's a nice privilege for seniors myself. You know, it's one of those things they look forward to, being the ones that get to leave early or stay. I don't know.
And there's a litany of reasons why we suggest this, we being administration, but it doesn't need to be a discussion item unless you want to be. Okay.
I think.
Yeah, I mean, the only other thing would be if it were honor students or something like that, but that's, you know, I mean,
I don't know. Senior privileges have always been kind of a
Right.
tradition in
That's
schools.
what I look forward to.
Yeah,
Just keep
you
it
look
that
forward to being a senior, so, and they're all driving, most of them are driving as seniors too. I mean, the honor student and freshman wouldn't be able to drive. but I-
No.
Yeah.
Well, it depends on the year you stay back.
So on,
Did parent,
They really have to do
do the
honor.
parents have to approve, though, the seniors can leave early now?
Yes.
Yeah, okay. That's what I thought. Just wanted to make sure.
Yeah, the students actually have to have a letter submitted from their parent
Yeah,
giving
that's
permission
what I
for that.
thought.
And they have to be in good academic standing. You can't just be a senior and come in.
Right.
And come in, right.
If you're failing,
Yeah,
you-
okay.
Yeah, that makes sense. If they're 18, do they do it?
If they're 18, they
can
actually
write their own letter, right?
They're in control of that on
Yeah,
their own.
that's
so
what I
they
was
can-
thinking. Woohoo.
so cell phones?
yeah, I think we're good on the senior privilege.
Yep.
Automobiles, is there, I know there was a bit of an issue with senior parking last year. Is that
So
remaining the same for this year?
the front parking lot is reserved for juniors and seniors, and usually it accommodates all juniors and seniors. The sophomores do a good job parking by tennis court or down by the track. The issue last year was plowing. There was a storm that came through and they plowed and blocked. We lost 4 lanes of parking last year, so it did become an issue. So the plan moving forward this year is just to make sure plowing is done better when those big storms come in.
Okay,
But otherwise, that front parking lot accommodates everybody that we need.
okay. Okay, bullying and harassment?
All we did was separate harassment from bullying. It's a commonly confused thing that happens. People claim something is a bullying situation, and it's not. It's a harassment or just straight up antagonization.
So my concern reading this was that we've got a harassment policy at the end of the handbook, and some of the language here doesn't really align with that. I was wondering if it maybe would just make sense to refer to the harassment policy that's at the end of the, I realize it's under Title IX, but it gives an explicit definition of the harassment, so maybe that could just be referred to.
Okay.
It just seems like, the sentence about harassment may or may not be deliberate, but it usually repeats itself.
This comes straight from our policy.
Yeah. Haven't looked back at the full policy. You mean on the bullying policy?
Yeah.
Yeah, the bullying, I see that the bullying policy did have something specifically about the power dynamic, but it didn't explicitly say that harassment doesn't have that or may or may not be deliberate. It just, I don't know. It just seems like we might be getting ourselves into a weird area with this wording, and we could just refer to the policy that we already have at the end. I was wondering
This is
about the
not what's
reason
in
for
here.
explicitly saying this.
This is not what's in for now, is that correct? I just want to make sure.
The italics are
They're
not.
talking about
Correct.
Yeah.
Correct. So on page 20 of the handbook is where you'll find about bullying, and it defines bullying, and it defines cyberbullying.
I think I would retitle that bullying and harassment, and then
Okay.
maybe put a blanket statement to Karen's point that says, there's a difference between bullying and harassment. Please refer to the policy for a more complete explanation.
Yeah.
And that's what it
Or something
says.
like that.
Yeah, it kind of, I mean, it says that here. It says, please refer to Prospect Mountain High School policy for further definitions, reporting procedures, and other pertinent information related to bullying.
Yeah, that's what I'm sure, but then at the end of the handbook, under where the Title IX is, that's where the anti-harassment policy is, and it gives a specific definition there, and I just don't want to have what we say in one section be different than what we say in another section.
I'm happy to just strike.
Yeah, I would say, why would we add that?
I think Jay's point is that the word bullying is used a lot in that section, and the word harassment really isn't. And he wants parents to be aware that and students, that there's a difference. So,
You said, just say there's a difference between bullying and harassment, please reference section,
yeah.
blah, blah.
And you could change the title of the section to be bullying and harassment. So you just sort of balance the words a little bit more.
And you don't have to worry about changing anything, it's already there.
Yeah.
Do you want me to leave what I've put in italics? Do you want me to add that to it or strike it?
I think just say strike it, just that.
Yeah, refer to the
As simple as
policy.
there's a difference between bullying and harassment, please reference section, blah, 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 for you.
Right, the appropriate section.
For your
handbook
edification.
or whatnot.
That way, if the policy changes mid-year, that the handbook doesn't have to change here. Okay. Cafeteria and food services. So just clarifying language there?
Yes.
Any comments or, no? Okay. Cell phones and electronic devices?
Good to me.
I mean, this is what's in here now, correct?
No, that's what they want to add.
I thought it was what we currently have.
No, that's
So what is in there now, I believe I did with this one, cut and paste what is currently in there, and
That's
wanted
what I
you to be
thought.
aware of.
And do you feel like it needs to change, or are you just saying, this is policy, we want you to be aware?
So just
It says just want the board to be familiar with our current practice, right? So I'm thinking that
You added the teacher's consent, did you not?
I eliminated the offenses that are at the bottom. In a
Right, on page
correction book.
21.
Yes, there's first, second, third offense. That's what I've removed, which makes what's in this document that changes the new.
The whole
Okay.
section?
Correct.
All right.
Okay, all right.
And I want you to be aware of it because this, every year, seems to be an issue amongst teachers. And at the end of the day, our policy is teacher discretion. Administration is going to back teachers, whatever their rule is. If they want to allow it, we'll support it, if it's within reason. If they want to completely prohibit it, we support it.
Yeah. And how is that working out? I mean, it's a tough
It's a
issue.
classroom management issue.
Yeah,
is really
absolutely.
what it boils down to. I read syllabus and course expectation sheets at the beginning of the year that say, bold, underline, 14 size font that says cell phones will absolutely not be allowed. and I walk by in week 1 and see cell phones allowed in that room, and I have that conversation
Oh, wow.
with the teacher, and they say, it's just so hard to enforce. Well,
Then
it's
don't
your
put it
job
in
to
your...
do it if you're going
Yeah.
to say that, because now what you've done is said,
Yeah,
I don't really mean what I say.
right.
So,
Right.
but I do think it's important, rather than to have a prohibitive rule, that it is up to teacher discretion. I mean, cell
Well,
phones
some
are not
teachers
going
use it
away.
as a
They need to be
teaching
taught
tool.
how to use appropriately.
Absolutely.
Some teachers use it as a tool
Yep.
in the classroom.
Seem like pretty minor changes.
Yeah,
Okay.
it's fine with me.
Community service. So we addressed this,
Yeah, this is what we had decided.
yeah.
So we've yet to update fully what the website outlines. We put the page under construction. As soon as I have a community service advisor, we'll sit down, Justin and I will sit down with whoever that person is. We'll come up with the processes, the paperwork, and then we'll update the website accordingly. But these changes reflect the decision that you made at the last board meeting.
Did we talk about, I thought we talked about them getting a special cord for,
We did.
Yeah.
I actually, and that's one of the things that will be listed on the website, rather than identified in here. I did send a letter home to incoming freshman parents that I identified this change, because there are freshman students who do community service over the summer. Not too long ago, I sent another letter home through Infinite Campus to the upperclassmen, advising them of the same change. So at this point, all of our students know about the change, assuming they've read the correspondence.
I know this is a little thing, but I think it would change the tone to say we encourage students to voluntarily complete. Just seems, instead community service is something that students can voluntarily complete, I think we should, having the word encourage there, I think just changes the tone of the whole thing. It's kind of our intent too.
Yeah, that makes sense.
I'm sorry, say it again.
Just rewrite the second sentence to
Yeah, so
encourage the
instead
word, somehow encourage in there.
we encourage students to voluntarily complete community service.
Okay. Ready to move on? After-school administrative detention.
We just need to add an O to the word room after intervention.
Good catch.
wrong call.
You're doing the wrong comp.
Dress code.
How do the teachers feel about the hats being worn?
I have not heard any complaints.
I haven't heard any complaints.
Can they wear them frontwards and backwards?
They wear them every which way they want.
Sideways.
It's an old fashioned, I don't like them. I don't.
Listen, I'm losing battles on stuff. I'm losing some
Yeah,
battles.
it's not worth the
I
battle.
have hats, but I'm losing some
Yeah.
other stuff.
Yeah, I'm okay with hats too.
Yeah, I mean, they're going to wear them.
Right, I think it's a losing battle.
It is a losing battle.
I'm getting pressure with the beards. That's my next step. I got it.
Okay. Incomplete grades.
It's fine. I don't,
Again, it's just a grammatical thing, but we probably should put quotes around incomplete just so it kind of makes sense.
So my only thought is the 2 weeks, because I think the range of reasons why somebody has an incomplete, it just reads like if you have a major medical issue or something, we're only
Well,
going
it
to
has
give you 2 weeks.
exceptions on the bottom.
It does have exceptions? Oh, yeah. Okay, gotcha.
Yeah, when I read
yeah,
that.
the only good thing about the 2 weeks is that,
It puts a
it
deadline.
gives a time for teachers too, because I mean, what teacher wants to grade something that's from in October when it's,
Yeah.
you know?
But there are medical
But-
conditions,
right.
but that says clearly
I
that
hadn't seen the
exceptions.
exceptions in.
Yeah,
Yeah.
as long as there's an exception.
Okay. Good with that? Everybody good with that one? Mm-hmm. Okay. Homework?
I mean, I think it addresses the issue. Homework is, again, a battle in some situations. Some people give more than others. Some students and adults believe in it more than others.
Sometimes it is busy work.
Sometimes it is
Many
busy
times
work.
it
I
is busy
agree.
work. I'm not sure I like that sentence, honestly, because
Yeah.
that's not often the case.
I don't disagree with you, Pam.
So the reason I included that is, again, it goes back to setting the tone and sending the message from the very beginning. I would hope that if it is busy work, that a student and or parent would reach out and say, this is busy work. It says in your handbook that it will not be, and it outlines very specifically what it should be. So that is why I snuck that in there.
And when your last sentence where you say, please contact the principal, protocols, usually you contact the teacher first. So if they do feel that way, they should contact the teacher first and then you, Jen?
Sure.
I just feel like we need to remind parents that they shouldn't be going to you immediately if they have a concern.
Yeah, I agree with that.
I'm happy to strike the busy work, but for me,
It just-
it
I
became
mean,
a
I'm not even
disclaimer.
sure where, I don't think we even need to add all of these definitions. They're high school students, they should know what homework is. I'm not, I mean, I just don't think we have to add all of those.
I think a lot of
explanations.
this might be aimed at teachers.
It's aimed at everybody.
Yeah.
Well, we lost the thread of homework with COVID, I
Coming
think.
in, I think it's important.
I think COVID kind of took away definitions of homework.
Well, I
because
think
we
you
weren't
could take
doing
off
it.
not busy work, homework complements current classwork and is tied directly to a student's learning objectives.
Yeah.
I would, my opinion, I would strike the 4 ways and then just go on to the last paragraph that you're adding there. But
I
that's
think
just my
I
opinion.
like the 4 ways.
I like the 4 ways because I think that, as Carol just said, post-COVID, there has been a dip in
Yeah.
effort and expectations, and if this helps structure a conversation about why homework is given and why homework is important or why it's not important,
I agree.
For me, the busy work, I like that's in there, actually. I don't,
Well, saying that it's
I'm an
certain it's
ex-teacher
not.
myself, and I don't believe in just busy work.
right?
You know, it's structured work, and it's,
And it can be
Typical
used for different ways,
The
right?
way that it's written reads like it's lecturing students. No, homework is never busy work. That's how it reads to me when I'm reading it, like with the frame of mind as a student, and I don't think that's always true. So,
Well, I think you meant homework shouldn't be busy.
yeah, that's
Yeah,
what you mean.
that's what I was just going to say.
If you change it to should not be, that might be more, yeah. Okay. Ready to move on?
Yep.
The word cognizant is misspelled.
Cognizant, that's not a word, is it? Cognizant.
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 What line?
It's right in the middle.
It's in the middle of the first word of the sixth sentence. 6. So you can lawfully search their cars without a police officer involved?
Yes.
You can. Huh. I knew you could search their lockers because they're school property, but I didn't know you could search their cars.
we do it.
Because it's on school property.
Yeah, I mean, I was always told I couldn't search their bags, or I could only search their lockers. I guess I was getting misinformation, huh? I could have been
It's
right.
an
for the two.
elementary school, Karen.
Hey, middle schoolers, you're talking middle schoolers, guy. They'd have some contraband once in a while. But we'd have to bring the parents in and search the bag.
Sniff lockers.
Well, they did that. I went to AZS, and they brought the dogs in and sniffed everyone's locker, and they found a girl with alcohol in her
That is almost our policy at work.
in their game. And that was how many?
Well,
years
maybe I
ago?
was just given the wrong information. I was given the wrong information for a reason, maybe. Who knows?
The big changes that were, and sorry, correct me if I missed it, but it's the reasonable grounds. A school official must have reasonable grounds to believe, and that's pretty
Right.
much been removed from the new wording.
So that's the law.
Yeah, the lockers, we can open a locker anytime we want, for
Right,
any
they're
reason, there are
school
lockers.
property.
Okay.
Yeah, so just change the spelling of cognizant.
So section 504,
So we're still in process of updating the language of 504. We've appointed a new 504 coordinator from the school, and we're still in process of developing the verbiage of what 504 will look like.
So it's,
All staying within the realm of law.
yeah, and Ruth will be involved in that.
Wait, I guess I don't understand. We don't have anything on it in the handbook now?
it's on page 41. I thought you said
The
42.
pages are just a little off.
Oh, so you need to still work on language to
Yes.
include universal?
Am I missing? I don't even see the,
It's on,
Page 41.
no,
41.
the next one, sorry. I moved on. Student
I
resource
don't-
officer.
I don't-
Is that going to be added?
Correct. We did not have anything in the handbook regarding a school resource officer.
Okay.
So this is new.
Okay.
And what do I mean by the equivalent of a full-time SRO? Is he
We
an
have,
SRO?
we have two, and they're split between two schools, so, right, so we might have, they might be half and half. It might be two people, but some of them are here at different times. It's
Oh, I
one
see
in
what you're
Alton
saying.
and one at
Okay.
Prospect.
Okay.
So it's one FTE, but two people split it?
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, and then the suicide response and prevention plan. That reads like we have a policy we need to review in the future, or tonight? Okay, all right. Okay, so we'll table that one for action items.
Changes to the athletic handbook. The only change I would like to suggest and ask for your approval on is the attendance requirements for athletic ability. I included what the language currently states and what we'd like to propose.
after?
So you're getting rid of the after all the games?
Full proceedings.
So after, yep, got it.
So you expect them to be there the day before the game and on the day of the game?
The wording changes from for a full day to attend all scheduled classes.
Right.
So kids who had study hall. would
So
have to
like the
come to
senior
school for a full
privilege.
day, senior privileges. And we have found what's happening more and more, that teams us included to a degree, are struggling to field full teams of themselves. And so we end up having to play doubleheader. We have to start a game later. We're still doing extensive traveling, and it's been like that for years, and I've always thought it's a terrible decision to have our kids drive up to Berlin with snow on the ground in wintertime and get home at 11 o'clock and then expect them to be back in the building at 8 o'clock the next morning for all of their classes. So we just would like the flexibility to allow things to be different if the circumstance allows it. Our girls softball team, for example, had a late game in one of the playoff games this year, and according to the rule, they all had to be back in school the next day, despite not getting home until 11 o'clock at night. So we just like some flexibility to say, give them rest for an extra hour or so.
But doesn't the unique circumstances allow for that? I mean, I think you also don't want to set the precedent that you don't have to be at classes in the
Right,
morning
play
if you have late
sports.
games. Yeah, or if you have a late activity, if robotics is off, I mean, it would be the same thing, right? Do they have to report to their classes in the morning?
You could say upon unique circumstances, or in the case of an exceptionally late game the night before.
Yeah, but he's taking out the after also.
No, that was a typo, was a miss.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
So then you have the drama kids having a late play, you have the robotics.
So it
It's
should
not,
be
this is
preceding,
athletics.
It should be after instead of
The
preceding.
day before, on, and after all games.
So the difference is the exceptions granted by the athletic director upon unique circumstances.
That's a good question.
Instead of athletics, could it say extracurricular?
This is the athletic handbook.
It's the athletic handbook, that's why.
So you only.
But
So-
that's a good question. Is it going to reflect with the other?
It certainly can.
I think it would have to be in the handbook if you're going to do that, because it doesn't seem fair that the athletes get to sleep in the next
Yeah, I
morning,
don't
but
agree on this one.
the drama.
But
I
only
don't
one.
know, I kind of think if you're doing
If you're gonna
athletics,
play
that's part of the deal.
the way
Show
it
up the next day.
Yeah, and we're asking kids to show up the next day. But it's, if a kid has a study hall first period and they're assigned a study hall and they
When you're traveling Berlin and there's a snowstorm, you're stuck on the side of the road for 3 hours. You can't.
That would be the exception. Yeah.
But you want the flexibility.
Yeah, I don't know how I feel about it either.
Yeah, I don't agree.
I mean, it's an
Play sports,
extracurricular activity, it's not
wake up.
something someone's required to do for
I
their
mean, if you're
academics.
stuck on the road for 3 hours, then yeah, I think that would be an exception where the coach makes the call. I don't necessarily think it's something that should be in a broad statement in the handbook.
I would like to think that it could, I would like to think it could be handled individually with teachers. For example, if they're up in Berlin and not home until 11 o'clock at night, and there's a test the next day, that is not fair.
I
Because
think
you
it's a
are.
homework issue at that point.
Right, and it's a teacher issue, and I think I have a little more, I guess, empathy for that than, I don't know, is that a parent issue? I mean,
What if we just struck the athletic director piece and said an excused absence due to unique circumstances is permissible if clear through the
I
principal?
mean, I just think in the context of prospects attendance policy being so strict, and to have an excused absence is very specific. It looks like we're trying to have a loophole for that for athletics, which isn't fair.
And I would
really.
worry that we're giving the loophole to like the winning team, but not to other teams.
Yeah,
who
it's-
don't get
it
so much
sounds
attention that year. That kind of
I mean, look at all the girls that are in dance academy. They're out late. I
They
mean,
have late
Livy,
practices, they gotta show up at school the next day.
yeah. I mean, Livy's out late and does her homework when she gets home at 9:30 because of dance. That's her choice. She goes to dance class, she gets home at 9:30, she does her work. She has
I
to.
don't understand. So if your schedule's for study hall and you're not an athlete, is there any consequence to not come in for study hall?
Yeah, we historically have issued after-school detentions if you're skipping that class.
Because we just said we wanted seniors to have the privilege, but not the underclassmen.
Yeah, I think we're opening up a can of worms with the kids that don't play sports, I think.
I think it's discriminatory. There are a lot of kids who are in extracurricular that don't do the
Not
sports.
just sport, yeah.
Again, keep in mind, this is the athletic handbook.
Right, it's the
Bring
athletic
to
handbook,
the
yeah.
the protocol for robotics versus the protocol for, truth be told, we don't, for something like a robotics, if they go away to a trip and they come home late, there's no, we're not under any type of guideline managed by, there's no like robotics athletic association that we're trying to play within rules, certain rules of. And the truth of the matter is that the play practice, they have a choice. They don't have to practice until 11 o'clock at night. We're not talking about something that is going to use willy-nilly. We just want the option there that...
I think we're looking at this in the context of, you kind of gave us the example of why you were changing this is because sometimes kids who have been out at athletic events should be able to skip the morning class. That you kind of gave that as an example of why we did this change. I think that's what prompted the conversation.
Yeah, and if you don't...
That's why we landed there.
Great. I mean, at the end of the day, they don't have to come late. It's fine. We'll go back to doing what we've always done.
It feels like somebody needs to make a motion on this, and we need to vote on it.
Okay, I'll make a motion that we do not add this to the...
It has to be a positive motion, right?
Yeah, you're going to positive.
Well, the handbook as it is
so
right
I
now,
vote
Okay.
the way it is? I mean,
if you take no
As it
action on it, it
reads?
stays as it is.
Okay.
So we don't really have to take action.
I'm trying to get a sense of what the majority is feeling about that, because
I'm not really sure.
I'll make a motion that the current language in the attendance requirements in athletic eligibility handbook remain as it currently states.
is there a second?
Second.
Okay. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
How many is that? Can you, sorry, 1, 2, 3. Okay. Opposed? 4.
I guess.
5.
I
Okay.
don't know.
All right.
I make a motion to adopt the new language as presented.
Second.
As presented, the new language that you read.
Yeah, with the clarification of the before and after.
Oh, okay.
Any discussion? My discussion is I'd like the exception to be granted by the principal, not the athletic director.
Yeah, I agree. I think it needs
I
to.
amend my motion. The exceptions. The language as written except for the athletic director is approved by the principal.
You get the job there, Jay.
All those in favor?
Sure, why not?
Aye. Okay. Opposed? Okay. All right.
Do we
Thank you,
vote on
guys.
the handbooks that changed?
What?
Do we vote
No,
on
but we
on the
weren't
students?
split on any of those. These are,
So you're approving it. And then
That was the only one that there was.
this is just my, I mean, we could vote on every one, but this is just my call because I'm sensing we had some split
Yeah.
opinions on this one.
But don't we need to still vote on the changes to the
Yeah, but
student
that's-
handbook that Jay offered?
But there's a policy here at the end, we're going to, in action items we haven't talked about yet. Then we can accept this whole thing.
See, that's the athletic handbook. We've been talking about.
It's a little, yeah.
the Student handbook up till now. They're separate.
Okay.
Yeah, let's come back to this.
Let's move on to the emergency action plan.
State passed a law that all schools have to have an athletic emergency action plan, again, pertains to athletics. So there's a boilerplate template that was passed around and provided by the NHIAA. And so we filled it in accordingly with everything that is applicable to us. A lot of it, if you've taken the time to read through, it really outlines all of the very specific details of what is supposed to be done, who it's supposed to be done by, and the manner in which it's supposed to be done. The initial template, this document was really driven by having an athletic trainer at your school. We don't have an athletic trainer here. We don't have a lot of the sports that, I don't want to say necessarily require an athletic trainer, but we don't have a lot of those sports that are doing double sessions and requiring assessment of players throughout the day and wrapping before games and icing after games and things of that sort. But that's a different
I'd
conversation.
like to differ, given my kid's history in sports.
Yeah, my history too, I'd say.
Well, and again, it's a different conversation.
Yeah,
Whether
it
you
is.
want
I agree.
to
Right,
have an athletic
exactly.
trainer versus having our plan have athletic trainer taken out of it. So we've used the head coach, the varsity coach, as that go-to person.
Yeah, I make a motion to accept the emergency plan as presented.
Second.
The only comment I have is I question sort of the ability for the coach or the athletic director to, if we had a true urgent situation, to reach parents in a timely manner, because there's no organized and systemic communication that's related to athletics in the school. So it's all sort of willy-nilly. You hear from the kids, you don't really hear that much from the coach, but there's no sort of automated communication mechanism that's tied to athletics at all. And so if there was an emergency, I think we would,
Were we looking at something like that, Tim? Getting some sort of app or something that we could do?
like a sports engine,
Yeah.
which won't sign a
Is that something that's
GPA.
still on
Well,
the table?
Family ID, sports engine,
yeah, something like that.
IT projects.
Yeah, maybe
So-
part of Apogee would do, I don't know what they could look at, but I think it's an issue in the school, having been through 4 years of multiple sports, the communication's appalling.
Would that be for also all extracurricular too?
Yeah.
That's an issue for
It's true.
band, for
Yep.
Yeah.
plays, drama,
There are apps out there that can do it.
robotics, any
Yeah.
extracurricular work.
There sure are.
Yep. I think that's the number one parent complaint about athletics in the school is communication.
Is there a phone system that we send out a blaster message through?
That's what
Because
this
you
would,
can make it by
yeah,
group.
but it's from the, I don't know if the SIS would do that or not.
So yes, it does. In today's quickness world, if there's a sports injury, kids are texting everybody that they know, parents included, before we're able to assess the scene, make sure kids are safe, making a call to the powers that be. Where we've attempted to have and use apps in the past that would allow a little bit more efficient communication, and just haven't been able to do it because of certain restrictions. But it is something that's on the to-do list to explore. So
I think you have a new technology CTO that would be willing to help with that, although she's got a lot up on her plate.
No problem.
So there was a motion.
Do you have a motion
Yeah,
and a second?
sorry, that was my little comment. All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Thank you. All right. Speaking of Christy, we have a technology report from the new CTO, Christy Prosser.
Hi, Christy. Everybody has a...
Welcome.
There's a copy of the
I made
written
it
report on the
exactly the
table.
right height.
How about that? Go for the short person. Well, hello, everyone. I am Christy Prosser, and I just recently joined your school district. So one of the things I wanted to share with you all tonight is just a few of the pieces that we have looked at over the last 2.5 weeks of how we can move forward towards some consolidation across the board and help end kind of the ease on the client side of things that are done in technology. And so this is just a quick snippet of about 2.5 weeks worth where we've taken a look at several pieces. And some of the things I wanted to share with you that we first wanted to start with was what can we consolidate for all of the schools that will also help technology. And that is a common place of actually being a help desk system so that no matter which school or facility you're at that can be entered in, we can track that data. That also gives us information how we move forward into what items we would need, what items we can consolidate, and what items we might need to support more from professional development, or even grow that type of software, what additional models we may want to add into it. For example, as Pam had just indicated a few months ago, that in SISs, you certainly can add different types of modules for communications out, but there's also a lot of other products that are out there as well. We also looked at several other things, but they were just kind of simple behind-the-scene pieces that could be pushed out easily, such as a common folder that came for teachers that's going to code when they sign in. They've got a folder up in the top toolbar, and that's going to have all the common links of things they would need internally that is cloud-hosted or locally served by a school for them to go to that login locations. And again, we're looking for more for things such as unified protocols for Active Directory and Google Sync. That's not consistent in all of the schools. So that's something that we've already have in progress that will be up and running, fully functional when we open school doors in a few weeks. We're also looking at how we can look at how do we build out our infrastructure, our network components, because right now when we walk around and we look into each of the different types of IDF and MDF closets, we're finding a variety of aged gear and models and brands. So what we want to be is consistent with what we're utilizing, and then also utilizing those E-rate funds that helps us bring down the cost for the districts, but allows us also to have one singular network that can support all of the schools. So there's some pieces that we already have in motion right now. And then I've also outlined several things that says we're ready to go right now. And that's our student devices, our employee devices, servers, and all certificates have already been updated. As we've looked in more to the consolidation piece, is that the shared services now have the employee email set up, as well as updated Wi-Fi access passwords from security measures just from as we closed the last school year, and before opening the next school year, we've updated those so that new passwords can be provided out to anyone coming into the schools. And then the other items, of course, I've just listed below for you to peruse at your convenience. And those are things that we'll continue to look at in the coming weeks and coming months, and how we can continue to design a technology department of shared services that supports not only the high school here, but helps develop the whole technology infrastructure as a whole. And in the same breath of that, that we allow an environment that's for more creativity and innovation and less frustration. And so that's the things that we're looking at. So this is a quick 2.5 weeks, and just want to have a few minutes to just share that information with you guys. So,
Thank you.
And for you all to meet Christy.
Yeah, right.
So
I'm here.
the whole, and you all know Matt, or have known, or have at least seen Matt Dumont. So Matt was our IT technician for the high school. He's now serving as our network and systems administrator system-wide. Probably Christy's right hand might be a fair way to describe that role. And then they have technicians working for them as well. Everybody comes here at the beginning of each week to this building, which is where their offices are, meets as a group, and then technicians go out to the other schools from here as needed. So there will be technicians in the schools, but not always the same person. It really depends on what's going on and what the school's needs are.
It's a lot of work. Christy, just a reiteration, we talked about this during your interview, but eventually, this is going to take time, I know, but I would love to see the ability for a member of the public to be able to come into any of our schools and join the Wi-Fi without having to go through getting a password in advance, you know, a big long code or anything like that, you know, or a student to park in the parking lot and be able to jump on the Wi-Fi if they need it.
Certainly, as we evaluate kind of the current infrastructure, how we can grow that infrastructure, and also look at how we can best fund it through, of course, using E-rate as well as whatever we have in our lines. But those will be the pieces that we can tackle. But you are right. That is a step that is down the road, because first we got to get the systems aligned and updated so we can have that in place. So we're close, but it's the planning piece to it and then implementation.
Thank you.
Absolutely.
And you're still down one staff member, is that right? At this point?
Yes.
You're still waiting to hire one person? Okay, great. It's a lot of work. Thank you.
Thank you for
Happy to
coming.
have you.
Thank you, welcome.
Thanks, Christy.
All right. Ruth, special education report.
Hey everybody, how are you? Nice to meet you all. So I've been on the job also for a few weeks, and with the 3 districts, and really what our focus is, our first observations are that pretty much we're in silos, 3 different silos. There are practices that are done in some areas, in some schools, that are done very well, and others that have a little bit of improvement that we need. What we've lost is Prospect Mountain High School as SAU 301 as a local educational agency, because we're the only school, I think, in New Hampshire, not I think, I know, in New Hampshire that's not a tri-regional, and it's just 2 cities that feed into a high school, so it's not considered a district. So we are, it's through Nessus, it's our champion for our platform for all of our IEPs. We're removing our high school students and putting them back in their hometowns so that they're there financially, they're there from their hometown, they're there, and then we have to, our high school staff, special educators, have to know which student comes from Alton and Barnstead, so that we can handle them at the high school and treat them all accordingly as far as the LEA situation is. We also are determining through the practices of special ed, the compliance is pretty tight. It's black and white, special ed laws are special ed laws, and there's not a lot of wiggle room, but some interpretations of the laws are a little bit different, and we have to align those for a continuum of services and a scope and sequence for various disabilities and various programs. So that, I think, is what I'm doing.
It sounds like there's nothing to it.
No, not at all.
The middle part that Ruth talked about, I told you at the last joint board meeting that we received a memo from the Department of Ed that the federal department had come and done an audit of the state and told them that we can no longer be treated as 3 different LEAs, local educational authorities. We now have to operate only as 2. And what that means for joint board is that the special ed MOU you've been operating under for the last 18 years or so, 19, has to change. Matt Upton, your attorney, and I have an appointment next week. We're going to edit that, no more than 2 hours, not to exceed. And we're going to edit the MOA to bring to you with proposed revisions. So what Ruth was describing is, I'm sure it's been really pleasant, but DOE has been working with our staff to move the students, not only current students, but former students, from 3 software to divide them out of the high school software system and move them back into the 2 town software. It's not done yet, is it?
No,
Yeah, I
not
didn't
yet.
think so.
Soon. Give me a couple days.
That's a lot of work.
It'll be great.
Yeah.
Huh. That's too bad.
Thank you, State.
Yeah. Are you good?
But so many of you hadn't met Ruth before, right? So look, they just started, right, in these roles, so there's not a lot of reporting here. We'll get in deeper into particular issues and policies and procedures in the future, but you all have a lot of people to meet, and rather than overwhelm you with everyone in one night, you're meeting 2 of them tonight. You meet a couple at your next meeting, a couple at your next meeting, and you'll dig deeper. We'll dig deeper later.
Not that we don't want to only listen.
Thank you.
Not that we don't only want to listen to you and Jay, but we love it when you bring other administrators in.
Me too.
It really helps give perspective, and we appreciate your time.
Thank you both. Okay, Tim, you're up.
Well, I'm not going to take as long as Jay did tonight. I gave you a copy.
He didn't take the time. We did.
I gave you a printed copy of our Facebook on the table that I emailed to you previously. So if you thought that Ruthie and Chrissy looked familiar, this is why. But it does include sort of an overview of everyone's scope of responsibilities. We have a meeting tomorrow with all of the administrators, all of the people who have system-wide responsibilities in all the buildings. We're going to go off-site for the day and start to hash out of all the dozens of things that I'm sure we all need to do, what are the top priorities and what can we realistically get done first. So I'll let you know how that goes after it happens. With regards to cost, I know that the shared services discussion has really been about a combination of improvement or alignment of services and also the possibility of some financial efficiencies. Sitting here tonight, I feel like we're achieving both. because we've created some opportunities to improve alignment and the quality and the quantity of our work. I mean, we have the capacity now to do some things that we just haven't been doing in the past, particularly when it comes to Matt Jazoka's responsibilities in curriculum and assessment, right? Just things that we haven't been doing system-wide, not because people are doing a bad job, but because there's only been time to do what there's been time to do. So I think we have the pieces in place now to start to enjoy some of the benefits in terms of the work we can do. And this was in your packet as a link. I have copies if anyone needs one, but the sort of the estimated financial summary. I don't know if it's in your packet or not, I'm sorry. But I have ballpark, it depends on, people take different insurance plans, things like that, but system-wide, we're looking at a savings of about $65,000 compared to budgets with all of these people in place with these new responsibilities. So I think we're on the verge of doing both things at the same time, and that was kind of the goal, right? So I think we're on the right track, and keep your fingers crossed. I wrote a memo on Friday to you that is in your packet about statewide and local hiring shortages.
Yep.
At the time I wrote this, 70 SAUs had responded to this survey that the NHSAA was conducting. As of today, 89 had responded, but the information is essentially the same. Schools are having a really hard time hiring. The other thing that's changed since I wrote this last Thursday or Friday is we've had 3, as of about an hour ago, additional teacher resignations. All at ACS.
Oh.
Oh, my goodness.
So when I wrote this, and I know it's a joint board high school meeting, but I might as well include the information you're interested in for all the schools. So custodians and paras, right now you're fully staffed for teachers to start the year at the high school. Jay's in good shape. In Barnstead, we have an opening for a music teacher. I think we all know how realistic our chance of finding a music teacher is for the new school year. And if you look up, you'll see that there are 17 openings in New Hampshire public schools for music teachers right now, according to the survey.
Education anymore.
One of the newest resignation in Alton is a half-time or part-time music position as well. So we now have, I think we're going to be having a conversation tomorrow while we're together about maybe some system-wide modification to how we handle music. But we'll see what that looks like, and I'll let you know. Each elementary school has a special education teacher opening. We had filled the one in Barnstead. The candidate withdrew after accepting the position just last week, and that is one of the 3 resignations. In Alton in the last 48 hours is also a special ed teacher. There are 144 reported openings. I think that's 147 as of today, but last week when I did this, there were 144 openings in New Hampshire schools for certified special education teachers.
Is this 842 openings for paras?
Oh, that's helpful, yeah.
Yep. So you're saying
the bottom line is it doesn't pay very well.
resignations for special education?
So of the 3 Alton resignations was a part-time music teacher, a special education teacher, and a primary grade early, like 1 through 3 teacher.
Okay.
We lost the candidate we had hired for special ed in Barnstead. So anyway, we're in better condition than most. I mean, Jay doesn't have a single teacher opening. That's remarkable right now in this environment. That is incredible. And frankly, we have 2 openings at Barnstead Elementary. That's also remarkable. I mean, and we have 2.5 in all. It's clear that we're going to have to do something about music across the system.
Sounds that way.
And with your individual board's blessings in your next couple of meetings, we can decide what that means, right? We can figure that out. I don't know the answer right now. We have work to do.
Yeah.
That's what they pay us for. So what I want to ask you to do tonight is there's a law in New Hampshire under RSA 18939A So just one little other piece of background. Every year, the Department of Education issues a critical shortage list. And if a certified area, a position, is listed on the critical shortage list, it means that you can hire anybody who has a bachelor's degree, who your superintendent deems is capable of becoming a teacher, and then they write with DOE a work-based learning plan or an Alt-4 certification plan, alternative 4 certification. So not just anybody in any role can get an Alt-4 plan.
No.
It has to be a certification area of critical need or staffing shortage. This year's critical need list from the DOE is actually remarkably short. There are not a lot of certifications listed on it because...
All of a sudden in April, it went like this.
Really? Interesting.
Yeah,
But
unbelievable.
under RSA 18939A, a superintendent with approval of the local school board may determine that a critical staffing shortage exists in one or more specific teaching areas within a school district, and then shall notify, not ask, notify the Department of Education within 30 days of that determination. So I propose that I declare a critical staffing shortage in Alton and Barnstead for music teachers, for special education teachers and administrators, and for elementary school teachers at all grade levels. And with your approval, I'll notify the Commissioner of Education that I've declared there's a staffing shortage, and then we can open up our searches for these positions to people who aren't necessarily already certified, but who are willing to enter into an alternative certification plan.
So I move
Point of clarification before you make the motion. Can we make a blanket motion that you can declare these local shortages in any area in case you need it in the future?
Or add that as a little footnote?
Rather than the board approving the specific
I would
areas?
probably take a belt and suspenders approach and ask you to approve it each time I do it, just in case. But I think I've included everything here tonight that we need in the next
And you're adding elementary school
90
teachers?
days.
Throw us in there too.
Principals?
No.
You're adding elementary school teachers? to-
All K through 8, all elementary levels.
so
Yeah.
I-
After the last 48 hours, I am, if that's okay.
I move that we allow the superintendent to notify the Department of Education that we have a local critical shortage in, at a minimum, music teacher positions in both special education teacher and administration positions and K-8 elementary school teachers.
Second.
Okay.
And at the high school level, right?
I think you should throw that into motion.
But we lose special ed.
Well, and contingent upon this conversation that we're going to have, I don't know if music is a K-12 certification versus a high school certification.
Well, I would say all
I
music.
think it is.
All music
I think
teachers.
it's K-12.
I think it is a K-12.
I don't think we were distinguishing music teachers as K-8,
Music is
just
K-12,
K-8 for elementary school teachers.
Most specials
If
are.
we can just
We're
get,
adding-
if we can get the high school level, just in
Yep,
case.
K through 12 music, K through ed special ed teachers and administrators, and then K through 8 teachers.
Yeah, that's,
That's what you said? Second. Thank you.
You
Thank you.
seconded it.
So not high school.
no K-12 for, except
K to
for
12. He did say K to 12. Sorry, I keep.
For special ed music.
Okay,
Kids
and
fight out
so we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Okay, all those in favor? Aye. All right.
The world
Any
is your
opposed?
oyster.
All right, I to ask.
I don't have anything in writing for you, but I want to let you know that Jay and staff at the high school have been operating for years under an understanding that I think that came from what was largely a previous joint board, that not all entities that use the facilities are charged for using the facilities. So if I prepared this more for tonight, I'd have more for you, but I don't. So instead, I'm telling you that Heidi and I are going to put something together and bring it to you next time. Because if a previous board made an arrangement with some entity that it could use the facilities for free, that's fine. That was their business, but you're the joint board now. And if something like that is just happening, it doesn't seem quite right to me without you making that decision. So I sent an email today. Heidi and I will meet with Rachel, and we're going to look at rental records. So I'm interested not only in what organizations or entities are paying for use of the indoor and outdoor facilities here, but also who we have records of using the facilities and not being charged for whatever reason. I'm really here to think about the future, not to worry about the past.
Don't we have a tiered layer?
You do, and I'll bring you copies of the policy and the rates. So it's a good time to look at the policy, look at the rates, and to make decisions about, who. So we have, I'll be a little more specific. I know I'm being vague, even though some of you know it all. We have organizations that are not the rec departments, but saying they're doing business on behalf of the rec departments. So does that, do we want to be specific about what each town's rec department is entitled to? And do we want the people who run the rec departments to actually be involved in booking that time? Or are we satisfied to say anyone who comes and says, I'm doing a rec program, can just have free access to the gym or to the fields? And then, by the way, charge people to go to those programs.
There's a big difference between making for-profit and non-profit.
Right. So it just seems a little blurry, and I think, I do believe there was a joint board here that made some kind of a deal, but I don't have anything in writing.
Is there a requirement that a custodial staff here when there's someone here using the building?
When we're renting,
Only when you're renting? But if not paying, you don't have that requirement?
so the reason this came, I have a long enough list, I'm not looking for things, but this was sort of on my radar, and the reason it bubbled high enough on my list to get here is I fielded 2 parent complaints earlier this summer about incidents that had taken place during events on weekends on this campus. And first I had to explain that they weren't our events, and that our only relationship was that we were a landlord and somebody was using our facilities. Then I found out that we didn't even know about the events.
Oh, wow.
They were just happening here,
Wow.
and they weren't on our facilities calendar.
Well, how's
So
that
then I got really interested in this topic,
What about
and here we are.
I think it's an issue, not just here, but certainly in Alton too. But I also think in the past we've seen too much charging of programs that benefit kids,
So in one case, I had a complaint about the conduct of a staff member running an event who's not our staff member at an event that we didn't know we were hosting here.
That's
And then
right.
another, I had a complaint that our provision of porta potties was inadequate for an event that we didn't know about.
Well, and how does the insurance feel about that? You don't know what's happening?
And we
have a
collect
point?
insurance binders when.
Right.
Yes.
Do we have a main point of contact
We do.
person? Okay.
So if people use the online form that we provide to reserve and rent the facilities, they go to Andy Callahan and then they go to Jay. But if somebody doesn't use the online reservation system,
But shouldn't that same person still monitor who's here?
yeah, weekends, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it just seems like a good time also to review kind of that whole policy, because I've also heard from organizations that have used this facility that communication has been very difficult, and the services that have been implied that would be available as part of the rental charge didn't really match up. So I think it's a good time to have an
review it all.
overview of the whole process.
So tonight is me taking the cap off this can of worms and not asking you to do anything. But I think
Future
this,
action item.
you have policies, we seem to be in a squishy area, so it's got to be straightened out a little bit.
Okay.
Okay. Other updates that I've brought you tonight, I think I've covered. I already mentioned we have a system-wide administrative meeting tomorrow, which is great because I really need that to happen. And I think that's it for me.
Okay. Action items. We need to reaffirm the email vote of June 13th, which is the email that you see printed out.
So I make a motion that we formally approve the adding $2 per hour to the kitchen staff.
Yeah, that was the email, right?
Second?
Okay. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you.
Any opposed?
I didn't vote on it to begin with, so
okay.
do I need to say anything?
Should you
It's up to you. You can vote.
Either way.
I'll just abstain.
Okay. So one abstention. And the second one? Oh, that's not really a
It was just
response.
a
Okay.
FYI.
Okay. Well, good, thank you. Okay, the 2022-2023 student handbook?
Skip until we go to the suicide prevention response, which has to be added to the, so as we do that one, then we can vote on this.
All righty.
Or can we go to the suicide prevention response now, or?
Sure.
Where is that one?
All right, we can do that.
I make a motion to set the suicide prevention response plan, JLDBB. Let's see, is this for final read? Just first read,
Well,
probably.
this is just the policy, not the actual plan, right? The plan still needs to be
This is the policy.
written. Do we have a plan?
We do.
We do, is that what we said?
Yes.
'Cause I think we've been asking to see it for, maybe that was at ATS for a little bit.
This is the first time we've had this policy, is that right? I'm gonna walk
Here.
forward.
It might have been ATS.
It's all,
By law, we're supposed
they're new within the last 2 years everywhere. This one's new here.
It is. The timing of it coincided with an event that we had here. The following year was COVID, and I think it just got pushed
So
aside.
does our plan meet the requirements
Follows
of the
us,
policy?
Yeah, so we developed our plan in coordination with NAMI.
It was actually, I got here after this happened, right after this happened, but it was NAMI's suggestion here not to create a plan and send it out to the staff at that time.
Right.
So what's missing, there's a liaison position missing on the second page. There's supposed to be somebody, a position named there.
This is prevention coordinator.
It's the superintendent identifies what that person could be, should be.
Yeah, I made a change in SEU 86's policy to not name who the person would be in the policy, but to simply say that the superintendent would designate somebody. That way, as staff come and go.
Right. I noticed that earlier, that
Yeah.
we shouldn't have.
It's the social worker, I can tell you
Right.
that.
Shouldn't have specific names.
But someday, if you didn't have a social worker.
Right.
Then it wouldn't be the social,
it
right?
has to
So
be
instead,
designated.
I'll designate somebody.
Right.
Okay, so I think that just needs to be changed on there.
Did somebody make a
I
motion?
made a motion, but this is the first time I'm seeing this, but at the same time, we need to add it into here. So I'll say this, I'm making a motion with that one change for the superintendent as a final read.
Yeah, I'll second that.
Yeah, we need this policy.
Any further discussion?
Has the
Yeah, I'd
plan-
like to see the plan.
has the plan been reviewed by the policy committee? Would that be something that they review or not?
I don't know if they did or not.
I mean, I don't like voting on policies that we haven't seen the whole thing on, so.
Well,
Well,
this is,
the plan is usually a -R, which is more at the discretion of administration than necessarily a school board policy, but it's good for us to read it and review it, but it's not usually, the -Rs are meant to be more flexible and fluid than,
So I asked the 3 school social workers to work together to coordinate their plans last summer. I know they're having another meeting, a follow-up next week. Well, no, tomorrow, the next day, this Thursday, this week.
So who would then update the district suicide prevention plan and present to the board for review? If the board don't need to see the plan? Right?
We bring a lot of procedures for you to see, but they're not part of the policy.
This is just a policy that the board,
So this is the policy
So you have
that
to
establishes that we have to have the plan.
we have to have this in the.
We have to have a policy.
Right, so it has
The
to
law
go
says we
there.
have to have a policy. The plan, I asked social workers to bring together to have a plan. that can be used in these schools.
So they're going to develop the plan.
They already started working on it. They've been working on it all year.
So that's the
So they
next
meet,
part that we
I have
want.
the day wrong, they meet on Thursday.
That's my concern, we don't
Yep.
have a plan.
However,
Prospect
by law,
already
we
has a
need
plan?
Policy.
But you first have to have a policy
You have
first.
to have a policy and then.
You have to have the policy first and
Yes.
approve the policy, and then
And the plan.
you can have
Yeah.
the plan. So we have to approve this.
The policy is like the law, almost, the school board's
And
regulation.
the plan is internal usually.
Correct. So for us, we've been operating on this plan since our experience, and we have protocols that we follow, documents that we fill out, a lot of communication that we contact, procedures. We basically just have procedures that work. So we've been practicing that, even though because we knew what the policy was back when it initially passed. So we built our process and procedure based on the policy, knowing at some point in time we would have a policy in place. We just did it backwards, but we have been operating under the same consistent
I
procedure for a while.
assume that you're going to start the year incorporating the new 988 number,
Yeah.
communication to
It's
students
actually
about that,
law
posters.
is now it's printed on a student ID, so
Yeah.
we've been corresponding with our photographer to make sure that that's going to be.
Maybe even making sure that that can be dialed in the phone system, that kind of thing.
So once it, I didn't include that in the changes to the handbook, but that'll be verbiage that I'll add in there.
So explain that out loud to some people, 98.
It's a new number called 988, and it's the new suicide prevention hotline.
Hotline.
24/7.
So all the schools are required to print language on the badges now and really just communicate it out to kids.
It just became active recently, and we're pushing out on law enforcement as well, too.
Yeah.
Okay, so I'm not trying to be difficult, I'm
No.
really not. But this states that the student handbook and district website will be updated each year with the contact information for the building suicide prevention liaison. But didn't we just say we don't want to state who that is? I'm just trying to understand.
I want the policy to read that the superintendent will designate one. I will designate the social worker, and then we will put the social worker's contact information in all those places. But that way, if there were ever, say, for example, a budget cut, I hope she's not watching tonight, and we didn't have a social worker, I could say it was a school counselor or somebody else without having to come to you and ask you to change the policy.
So the policy.
And then we would just put that person's
Website
name on the
will
website.
say.
So are we already complying with the dissemination
Yes.
portion of this being in the student handbook and the district website?
So
Because I don't see it in the handbook.
technically, no, it hasn't been in either place because you haven't, this is it. This is our first time
that's
doing
why
it.
we're-
So we've been,
I realize that, but we've had the plan.
And you'll get a formal written plan to review, and I think this might be part of Rebecca's question, which I get.
We're going to get it.
When the three social workers together give me one that I can bring to the joint board, and I would like to start doing this with motion language that I'll bring you from Matt Upton, that would allow me to present something like that once and have you
Makes
approve
sense,
it.
rather than-
And then if we had to go to the other two and put it on a consent agenda or something like that, whatever we need to do, I'll work out with Matt, so that we don't have to spend the same amount of time 3 times a month dealing with these repetitive things, right? So you're going to see a crisis and EOP, an emergency operations plan, crisis plan, by October. That's for everybody, with some specific addenda for the unique aspects, things about each building. And I really hope to bring you a lot of things like that.
Would it be appropriate to share the current plan with the board privately, just by email, just to make sure, so people have a chance to read it over?
sure.
Okay. Would that help, Rebecca, if he just emails it over so you can
Yeah,
look at it?
I'm just concerned if the verbiage, we're gonna, approve the policy, but it also says that the plan needs to be on the school's website. So I just want to make sure that
We'll get it
when we
there.
approve a policy, we're following in line with the policy. Because as soon as this gets approved and we don't have the stuff to follow, then it's more done.
Okay, so we have a motion and a second, right? All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed?
With that, I'll make a motion to approve the 22-23 student handbook with the updates from the principal and as amended by the school board.
And with the addition of suicide prevention.
It's part of that.
Yeah, it was mentioned.
It's on there, okay.
It's on, that's why we can approve this into a group.
Second? I don't know if somebody's seconding.
Any further discussion? All right, all those in favor?
Aye.
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 Okay. Any opposed? Okay, thank you. Athletic handbook, I think we have the same thing. We have the emergency, the JLCJA policy that we need to approve.
Make the motion to approve the emergency plan for sports-related injuries and additional protocols for athletic participation, JLCJA.
Second.
Any discussion? This looks pretty boilerplate. So this is first, second, and
Fine.
final. This looks really boilerplate.
Yeah.
Okay. All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Okay. Unanimous? All right, so now we're at the athletic handbook.
Make a motion to accept 22-23 athletic handbook as presented.
We already did it.
I thought we did, but
Yeah.
We did
But we
earlier.
didn't have this one included. All right. Okay. If we did it earlier, that's fine.
yeah.
And then we have policy, there's a lot of red.
Yep.
JECB and JFAB, non-resident student admission and tuition.
So not for action tonight.
Good.
Want us first read, though?
Yeah, so I thought we would have a policy committee meeting in September before the joint board meets, for those of you on the policy committee. But everybody has this for a month before it comes up, okay?
Do you want to do a first read, though, so the next time we meet the table will be a second read?
Sure. I'll tell you what it is. The red policy, JECB, the joint board doesn't currently have. You used to, and when you adopted policy JFAB, which is the next one here, the one that's in mostly black, you replaced JECB with JFAB. I'm proposing two things, and you might not want to do all of this, okay? You've highlighted a part in yellow that you really need to make a decision about, because it's a board decision. JECB, I believe, provides language that could be easily adapted by a district that becomes an open enrollment district with a couple of these changes. So I think this sets the table for that possible future change. Furthermore, on page 3, it starts on page 2 under exceptions. There's an exception here. I took this language from another district that has this, okay? This is an exception for children of district employees. I know it's been talked about here before, but it was almost 20 years ago that it was discussed here. And because of enrollment and the potential for maybe open enrollment and some other changes, it seems like a reasonable time to have a discussion for you, the joint board, to have a discussion. If you wanted to make enrollment for the children of employees possible here at Prospect Mountain, you could use this policy to do that. And then on page 3, highlighted in yellow, you could also determine whether or not and to what amount those district employees pay tuition. The number that's in here, 1/4 of the district's per pupil cost, is proposed as a starting point because for families that qualify for an educational freedom account, New Hampshire's new thing as of last year, that amount of money would just about cover 1/4 of our per pupil cost.
It's roughly equivalent to like a parochial
About
school, right?
$5,000.
Yeah.
It's roughly $5,000. Now, to qualify for that, a family has to be under 300% of the household income poverty level for New Hampshire. So it wouldn't be all of our employees, it might be some of our, and for those who didn't qualify, they would actually be paying out of pocket. I've spoken with folks from a district that offers enrollment for their employees' children at no charge. I've spoken with somebody from a district who offers enrollment for the children of their employees for 50% of their per pupil cost. So I've given you a starting point that's in between. And that's a start.
And the history of ACS is they used to give free tuition to staff children back in the day when my kids were little. So if you worked at ACS, you could bring your children to school for free.
I'll see you next week with a similar packet.
I have one question on page 2 on the exceptions. I just think I may be confused or reading it wrong. Because it says professional staff. Are we making a distinction as to what staff
that's a good catch.
can and what can't, who can't?
That's an interesting, now fully transparently, I borrowed this from another district that uses this policy and didn't think about that. So I think
Good catch.
it's worth making a decision. Yeah.
I think the whole point is he's giving us this for our first reading, but really wants us
should.
to study it and come back with.
Right.
Discuss next time.
Well, we don't have to do first reading.
And then in the other policy, JFAB, on the second half of this, I've proposed some strike-throughs and additions that largely relate to sort of setting the table for potential open enrollment in the future. So,
Yeah, I'd actually maybe like to not do the first reading, and we'll just bring it forward next time. Okay, great.
I just wanted to get
So
you
are you
started.
proposing having both?
Yep.
Yeah, I think I would, just as a point of discussion, I would like to after next meeting, discuss exactly how many kids do you think we're talking about? And I would also want to make sure that, that any student would, at this point, because we're not open enrollment, would have to go through the board and apply.
So this policy has the principal establish a committee.
Something, right.
That's, so as opposed to coming to the board.
Yeah, that's fine.
It's nice to have a benefit like
You do
this
great.
for staff.
It's all yours,
Help
Jen.
attract staff, sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So in technically looking forward, once open enrollment happens, this is a moot point.
Right, so if you did this now, or if you did this in the next 45 days, right, we would say to staff, if your children are enrolled somewhere else, they could come here under whatever the terms are. And then you have, this has deadlines and things like that. You'd have to make a decision for the first year, would we just allow people to do it?
Yeah, I just wonder how many we're talking.
Let's say next March, we became an open enrollment district and an open enrollment school, then I would come to you and say, hey, that stuff about staff kids, I suggest you strike all that now from policy and treat them as any other open enrollment, because now that payment's being made by a school district, not by a family, right? So, and if it seems like, why would I bother bringing this to you now? I just want to get started. There's going to be so much to do with this open enrollment stuff that this starts it and allows us to start thinking about all the different angles.
So it also seems like it creates quite a bit of work. I mean, it could.
Only for him.
I mean, I remember when they struck the policy, I think I remember back in the day. And I seem to remember there was sort of one kid taking advantage of it, one family.
Yeah.
So it's not like a huge number of people, or it wasn't then. And it was a big deal because that child had been in the system right up until high school, and I think they were a junior or senior when the board changed their rules and kicked them back out to a different high school.
I would
But we're
bet
not talking
you might get a half a dozen
doing it
kids through
just,
this.
yeah, we're not talking about doing it just for staff. I mean, it's just, not that we're going to, well, whether we publicize it or not is another thing.
Well, open enrollment's a whole different
I think
ballgame,
that-
right?
Yeah.
So if you did it for staff, if you allowed staff to have their kids here,
I think that
tuition,
board
not
changed
some
it.
amount, and it would depend, right? If it were for too much tuition, you wouldn't get anybody. Certainly, if it were for free, you might get a half a dozen, is my guess. I just flashed the number 5 at Jay, and that seemed like maybe close. I know we have a few who have asked in the last few years.
Yeah. 10 years ago, you probably would have had double digits, but
Right.
they're all old and graduating.
Okay.
But under open enrollment, the school would become open to any student who resides in New Hampshire, no matter who their parents were.
Right.
And it wouldn't matter.
Okay, so we're just going to
So
table
that's
this for
just
next time.
It's a start.
Personnel report, we have,
None of these resignations are new.
Yeah.
These are all things you've already seen, with maybe the exception of there's a custodian here, Mr. Cosgrove, who resigned at the end of the year.
Do we do exit interviews to see why everybody's resigned?
We have people fill out an exit interview form, or that's what we've done in the past. And then what Sharon used to do before she retired in HR was, if something out of the ordinary was there, she would show it to me. And I tell you, this year, it's actually been more, SAU 86, half the people leaving aren't going to be teachers anymore.
Right.
It really is amazing.
Yeah,
And the vast majority, 80-90% of those leaving are in their first 5 years of teaching. But one of the resignations I got yesterday, is a pretty experienced teacher who's just like, I'm not doing this anymore. I'm just not going to teach anymore.
so let's do these in 3 batches. Whoever would like to make the motions?
The names read too?
No?
I make a motion, we accept the resignations.
Second.
All those in favor? Aye. If you want to discuss, just jump in. Okay, next.
Make a motion to accept the 22-23 new hires.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
The athletic nominations are new. Jay and the AD have been interviewing candidates for some remaining openings for next year. So these are new appointments.
I do want to point out that the proposed salaries that are listed on here, I'm 99% sure they're not all consistent with the actual dollar amount. I think the basketball coaches get paid slightly more than the soccer coaches because it's a longer season, but I don't know what that number is off the top of my head.
But it's according to whatever stipends.
It's a
Whatever that
okay.
looks like.
Okay.
So I make a motion that we approve the nominations for the athletics department with the salary to be amended as outlined in the
Salary schedule.
salary schedule. Thank you.
I'll second.
Okay, all those in favor? Aye. Next, public input. I don't see anybody, so no public input. Close that. Future agenda items, we certainly have this non-resident, these 2 policies to look at.
Are we going to get any, I know we only have the juniors take the state testing, but are we going to have any kind of report about the state test?
Thanks for asking.
Not a problem.
Not tonight. I gotta
Not
jump in the
tonight, though,
lake.
Tim. That was for future generations.
I know, but
Future.
That's future
that's why I
items.
don't want anything else.
Want to go to the next meeting?
Yeah.
We'll get it in the next meeting. Matt Jazokas will come and do his first report on assessment
Perfect.
results. How about that?
That sounds
Perfect.
great.
That's a good job.
No, I was talking about future agenda items. Don't make me the bad
And
guy.
for future, I did see
I'm the bad guy.
the legislative changes that come out from the School Board Association or whatnot.
Yeah.
There was a policy change for the religious exemption on immunizations or whatever. I don't know the actual policy number, but they changed it. It used to be that you had to have a notarized letter to be exempt from that, and they dropped the notarized.
Are you sure these are actual changes, or are these the proposed changes, the proposed policies coming out from this, what do they call them? They don't call them policies,
Yeah,
and
they
I'm on the
have
board.
They get so much.
Resolutions for the School Board Association as a body to vote on in September at their annual meeting.
That I don't,
That's
I
what
thought it
they've
said
been working
effective
on.
July. I thought it gave an effective July date and then gave guidance just to remove that notarized, but you could be correct, I could be mistaken.
Okay, so let's refer that to the policy committee to take a look at those new policies.
Yeah, you want me to just, I'll just forward the email or whatever.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, any other future agenda items, other business? We do have a non-public we need to do.
Oh, we do?
Yep. Okay, so we need to go into non-public under E, if somebody would like to.
I'll move we enter non-public session under RSA 91-A:1